At exactly 10 p.m. on November 17, 1944, Sergeant Mel Grevich stood alone inside a large storage warehouse at Camp Tarawa, Hawaii. The building was quiet except for the distant sound of waves breaking on the shore and the hum of generators from nearby barracks. The warehouse smelled of oil, salt, and rust. All around him were broken machines of war, damaged aircraft fuselages, twisted wings, bent propellers, and piles of gun mounts removed from planes that would never fly again. Some had been shot down over jungles. Others had crashed during landings on short island airstrips. Now they waited here, tagged and marked, destined for scrap. Grevich wasn't looking at the aircraft. He was thinking about men. He was 26 years old. He had already spent 18 months fighting in the Pacific Theater. He had survived places most Americans would never even hear about: Bougainville, island airstrips hacked out of jungle, malaria-ridden camps, endless rain, and sudden death. Yet, standing in that warehouse, Grevich felt something worse than fear. He felt useless. In the previous 4 weeks, his battalion had lost 11 machine gunners. 11. Not during combat, but during training exercises meant to prepare them for what was coming next. That number haunted him. Those men hadn't died because they were careless. They hadn't died because they lacked courage. They died because the weapon they were trained to use was no longer good enough for the war they were fighting. The standard Marine Corps light machine gun was the M1919A6. It weighed 32 pounds unloaded. With ammunition, spare barrels, and gear, a full machine gun team carried more than 50 pounds. The gun fired at roughly 400 rounds per minute. 400. Grevich knew those numbers by heart. The German MG-42 fired at 1,200 rounds per minute. The Japanese Type 92 fired around 450. In a firefight, those numbers were not theory. They were life expectancy. He had seen it on Bougainville. 3 machine gunners had been cut down in front of him. They fired short, slow bursts. Between those bursts were gaps, fractions of seconds where no bullets flew. The enemy used those gaps to move. They advanced, they flanked, they closed the distance. By the time the Marines realized what was happening, it was too late. Now Grevich was part of G Company, 28th Marine Regiment, 5th Marine Division. The division was preparing for something far worse than Bougainville: Iwo Jima. Intelligence briefings were blunt. The island was 8 square miles of volcanic rock. More than 21,000 Japanese defenders were dug into an underground fortress, miles of tunnels, bunkers, pillboxes, and caves carved directly into stone. The Marines would land on black volcanic sand that offered no cover and no concealment. Every step inland would be uphill. Every approach would be covered by overlapping machine gun fire. Machine guns would decide everything. And the M1919A6 was too slow. 3 weeks earlier, Grevich walked into his company commander's office. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't dramatize. He explained facts. The M1919A6 required 3 men to function properly: a gunner, an assistant gunner to feed ammunition, and an ammunition bearer. If the gunner was hit, the weapon stopped. If the assistant was hit, the belt jammed. If either man went down, the firepower disappeared. The weapon was also slow to reposition. Marines had to stop, deploy the bipod, lie flat, and then fire. In that time, Japanese gunners, masters of concealment, already had their range. The company commander listened. When Grevich finished, the room was quiet. Then the commander asked a single question: "Do you have an alternative?" Grevich answered without hesitation, "Yes, sir." 13 months earlier, on Bougainville, Grevich had seen something unusual. In November 1943, he had been serving with the 3rd Parachute Battalion. During the fighting,
Marines recovered aircraft machine guns from wrecked dive bombers, M2 30 caliber guns designed for aerial combat. These weapons were never meant to be fired from the ground. They were designed to fire at high rates while being cooled by airflow at hundreds of miles per hour. But they were powerful. They fired the same 30-06 round as the M1919, yet fired it at 1,200 rounds per minute. One Marine had attached a bipod and used it on the ground. It worked, but it was awkward. No stock, no proper trigger, aircraft spade grips. Grevich and his platoon leader, Lieutenant Philip Gray, had gone further. They added a rifle stock, modified the trigger system, and stabilized the gun for ground fire. The weapon worked. But before it could be tested in combat, the parachute battalion was disbanded. The gun was left behind. Grevich was reassigned. Now, in November 1944, that memory returned with force. The 28th Marines would land on Iwo Jima in less than 3 months. Grevich didn't need one weapon, he needed 6. One for each rifle platoon in G Company, one for the demolition section, one for himself. When he explained the idea, the company commander surprised him. He approved it. So did the battalion commander. But they all understood the risk. None of this was authorized. Marine Corps Ordnance had not approved such modifications. There were no manuals, no spare parts, no official support. If Grevich tried to do this through paperwork, it would never happen. He needed parts quietly. That's when he found Private First Class John Little. Little was a machinist by trade. Before the war, he had worked with metal every day. He understood tolerances, stress, and how machines failed. Grevich explained everything. Little didn't ask if it was allowed. He asked when they would start. They began searching Camp Tarawa. Aircraft machine guns were technically controlled items, but the Pacific War had destroyed thousands of planes. Salvage yards overflowed with damaged parts waiting to be scrapped or shipped back to the mainland. Grevich and Little asked questions. They followed rumors. They searched bins marked junk. They found 3 M2 receivers in a scrap pile, 2 more inside a damaged fuselage. The 6th came from a source Little later described simply as, "I don't even know." By late November, they had 6 receivers. Now they had 10 weeks. Every night after regular duty, they worked in secret.
On November 21st, the first modification began. The M2 had no shoulder stock and no mechanical trigger. It was fired electrically in aircraft. Little removed the spade grips. Then he fabricated a mechanical trigger from scrap steel. It was crude, but it activated the firing mechanism reliably. The stock was harder. Little took an M1 Garand stock and carefully carved it to fit the M2's buffer tube. Too tight and recoil would shatter it. Too loose and accuracy would be impossible. 6 hours later, it fit perfectly. They adapted a bar bipod, modified heavy machine gun sights, built a 100-round ammunition box so one Marine could operate the weapon alone. By December 5th, the first gun was complete. They test-fired it in a remote area. It was devastating. 10-round bursts landed tight groups. Suppression was immediate. Then the barrel began to smoke. After 75 rounds, the gun seized. The problem was heat. The solution was discipline. Short bursts, cooling pauses. By January 5th, all 6 weapons were complete. Each weighed 25 pounds. Each fired 3 times faster than the standard machine gun. Grevich named his weapon Betty Ann. On January 7, 1945,
The 5th Marine Division sailed west. The 6 weapons went with them, undocumented, unauthorized, and invisible. And soon, they would be tested in one of the most brutal battles in American history. On February 19, 1945, the horizon south of Iwo Jima turned gray with smoke. At 08:59, the first wave of Marines climbed down cargo nets into landing craft. Battleships and cruisers had been shelling the island for 3 straight days. From the sea, it looked as if nothing could still be alive on that rock. That illusion lasted exactly 1 minute. G Company, 2nd Battalion, 28th Marines, landed near Green Beach. The sand was black volcanic ash, soft, loose, and impossible to dig into. Every step sank ankle deep. There was no cover, no trees, no debris, only a rising slope of bare ground leading toward Mount Suribachi. For the first few moments, there was silence. Then the Japanese opened fire. Machine guns erupted from hidden bunkers. Mortars fell with terrifying precision. Artillery shells burst behind the advancing Marines, cutting off retreat. Men fell immediately. The M1919 machine gun teams tried to deploy. They dropped to the sand, struggled to set bipods, struggled to feed belts clogged with grit. They were too slow. That was when Sergeant Mel Grevich dragged Betty Ann into position. The modified AN-M2 roared to life. The sound was different from anything else on the beach, a ripping, tearing scream. The fire rate was so high, it sounded like one continuous blast. Japanese fire paused, not stopped, paused. That pause saved lives.
Grevich fired in controlled bursts, just as they had practiced. 10 rounds, pause. 10 rounds, pause. The gun overheated quickly, but those short windows of suppression allowed riflemen to move. Within 30 minutes, the other Stingers were in action across the company front. Each one became a magnet for fire. Japanese gunners recognized the threat instantly. They shifted machine guns and mortars toward the Stingers, but the damage was done. G Company moved inland faster than any unit around them. By noon, they had reached the base of Suribachi. The beach behind them was covered in wounded. Ahead of them was worse. Corporal Tony Stein was not supposed to be a hero. He was a former machinist from Ohio, quiet, stocky, not flashy, but he understood machines, and he understood the Stinger better than anyone except Grevich. Stein picked up one of the modified guns and began advancing alone, not charging, walking. Every time a Japanese bunker opened fire, Stein dropped, fired a burst, silenced it, and moved forward again. He made 8 solo supply runs that day. 8. Each time he crossed open ground under fire to bring ammunition back to the front line. Each time he carried the Stinger back with him. At one bunker, Stein fired so long the barrel glowed red. Smoke poured from the receiver. The gun jammed. Stein didn't retreat. He threw grenades into the firing slit instead. By the end of the day, Stein had killed at least 20 enemy soldiers and destroyed multiple bunkers. He was later awarded the Medal of Honor. But the Stinger paid the price. The aircraft gun had never been designed for ground combat in volcanic heat. Barrels warped, receivers cracked. By day 3, most Stingers were barely functional. One exploded, another seized completely. By day 5, only one still worked, but the impact was already undeniable. Units without Stingers stalled, units with them advanced. Japanese prisoners later described the weapon as a saw cutting the air. After Iwo Jima, something strange happened. The Stingers disappeared. There were no official reports, no ordnance evaluations, no manuals written. The Marine Corps did not adopt the weapon. Why? Because it embarrassed the system. A sergeant and a private had outperformed Marine Corps procurement,
engineering, and doctrine using scrap metal and stolen parts. Officially, the Stinger never existed. Garand returned home in 1945. He rarely spoke about it. When historians later tracked him down, he said only, "It worked when it had to." Tony Stein did not survive the war. He was killed on Okinawa in April 1945. Today, only 2 Stingers are known to exist, one in the National Museum of the Marine Corps, one in private hands. No blueprints remain, no official designation, just a nickname, the Stinger. A weapon born from desperation, built in secrecy, tested in hell, and then quietly erased. But on the black sand of Iwo Jima, for a few critical days, it changed the war for the men who carried it.